Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming to the Fairmont Community Center. We're excited to have this opportunity to talk with our mayoral candidates for the City of Independence. My name is Patrick Farrell. I'm the Executive Director, and in the audience is Larry Trowbridge, who's the President of our board. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jeff Fox from the Examiner as our moderator for this evening. Jeff?
Thank you, Pat. And again, good evening. Welcome to this Independence City Council Candidates Forum sponsored by the Independence Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jeff Fox. I'm the editor of the Examiner, and I'll be the moderator this evening. On behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank the candidates for their participation this evening, and I'd also like to thank the Chamber for organizing and staffing this event. The rules for tonight's forum are pretty straightforward. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. Each will be given 2 minutes to answer each question. At the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a final statement. The Chamber is keeping time, and you see the 2-minute note there that Trina is holding. We'll rotate question by question. We've already had a draw for that order regarding which candidates will go first, second, etc. Just a reminder, voters this spring are electing a mayor here in Independence. The primary election is next Tuesday, February the 8th. 6 names are on the ballot. Those 6 names are Kenneth Love, Eileen Weir, Holmes Osborne, Rory Rowland, Colleen Huff, Bryce Stewart. The top 2 vote getters next Tuesday will advance to the general municipal election in April. Candidates, let's use our time well. It's not my intention necessarily to jump in and reread every question for each new speaker, but I might jump in as needed. And of course, if you want a question repeated, just holler. Our first question goes to Holmes Osborne, and with Colleen Huff on deck behind him. The first question is this.
Opening statements.
Oh, I jumped ahead of myself, and you are correct. The opening statement, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
And others. The opening statement starts with Holmes Osborne with Colleen Huff on deck.
I'm going to break a long-standing rule of mine, and that is to invoke the name Harry Truman. I don't like it when politicians around here talk about Harry Truman because everyone does it, but today I'm going to do it. Harry Truman made his name from the Special Committee to investigate the National Defense Program. In this program, he was able to find exorbitant spending, inferior ball bearings in airplanes, a camp in Pennsylvania that was 10 times over cost, a railroad line 17 miles at Fort Leonard Wood that never got built, and he made a name for himself. I plan on doing these types of things. I have talked about raising the police's pay to $60,000 a year, not giving them a raise, Mr. Fox. If you could put that in the newspaper, $60,000 a year, I'd appreciate it. Have a gas-fired power plant at IPL, and also fix the problems that we have at Bass Pro. Like Harry Truman made the jump from Jackson County Legislature to U.S. Senate to Vice President, and Vice President to President. These are all huge quantum jumps. I'm on the Community College Board. We deal with $100 million. It's an elected position. It's a big jump from the Community College Board to the Mayor of Independence. I would like for you to let me make this jump. Today, there's some bad news that came out about Independence. A police officer made a huge amount of money. I think it was close to $300,000, and a lot of that was overtime. The news agency came out here. They interviewed a lot of the mayoral candidates. I called for Zach Walker to be fired in the last forum last Thursday. This should have been caught. This should have been caught after 2 weeks. This should have been caught after 4 weeks, but not after a year. This is one of many problems. We have a fleet of $65,000 pickup trucks. I mentioned the Bass Pro problem. Let me use my financial background to come into the City of Independence and straighten things out.
Colleen Huff.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name's Colleen Huff, and I've lived in Independence for over 14 years, and I've established deep roots here. I'm really concerned about the direction that I see our city is going, and we need to overhaul our city and fire those who are jeopardizing our future in Independence. Our potential in Independence is so much greater than what we see now. Violent crime is on the rise, and the homeless population is growing daily, and businesses and properties are being abandoned due to the economic downturn and the bureaucracy that we see going on with our current leadership. To solve the crime, we need to rally around our police department and let the world know that we support our police and that we will never defund them or defame them. We will give them all the tools they need, like body cameras, to protect themselves from corrupt George Soros-funded Jackson County prosecuting attorneys. Our city's been plagued with endless investigations, another one today. The poor policies have cost the good people of Independence millions of dollars through overpriced utilities and high taxes. The city politicians need to be transparent and honest and not hiding behind lawyers and having closed-door sessions because of their corruption. The people of Independence are paying their salaries and footing the bills for their poor decisions. And we need change, and we need it now. Lastly, and most importantly, my job as mayor is to protect you and your family, our constitutional rights, and our God-given freedoms. They should not be infringed upon. And together we can protect our children and our future against illegal government mandates. You make the difference, and you can be a part of this great movement to a government that is of the people and for the people. I urge you to cast your vote for me, Colleen Huff, for Independence Mayor on February 8th. Thank you so much.
Bryce Stewart.
So my name is Bryce Stewart. I'm currently on the City Council representing the 2nd District, which is usually described as the northeast portion of Independence. So professionally, I work full-time for Jackson County, Missouri, in the Information Technology Department. I've also worked part-time as a police officer in Lawson, Missouri. I've been in law enforcement for nearly 2 decades, both full-time and part-time. I hold a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and an associate's degree in network administration. Personally, I have 2 beautiful daughters, Ollie and Emmeline. Their mother, Misty, and I could not be prouder of them. I'm running for Independence Mayor simply because I believe we need a change in leadership for a multitude of reasons, and I believe that I'm the best person to move the city forward. Thank you.
Rory Rowland.
Thank you all for being here. It is my pleasure to be involved in this forum. It is my pleasure to have the opportunity to run for mayor for you. For those of you who do not know me, my wife and I moved here 41 years ago, and we got an apartment, got a small house, a little bungalow after that, after a few years, got a 3-bedroom apartment, then we got another house so we could raise the 4 kids when they were teenagers there. Independence has given us that opportunity, and I'm glad that it has. Some of my earliest memories of Independence were visiting Wild Woodies, but my first real strong memory was, and I'm going to invoke the name of Harry Truman, standing in line at his funeral and while he lays in state. And it was an incredible experience for me. And one of the reasons we moved here is because of my passion and love for Harry Truman and what he has done for our country and what he's done for our city. And then I worked for the City of Independence for several years. After that, I was selected as the CEO of City Credit Union. It needed to be turned around, and with the help of the staff and the board of directors, we were able to do that. I went on to another credit union, was elected by their board of directors to serve there as the CEO. So I served there twice. For the last 25 years, I've been a speaker and consultant for credit unions all over the United States. So the credit union was my first turnaround, but I want Independence to be my second. Also, I watched some of the statements on the internet. They said I had a cheesy smile. I needed to whiten my smile. I needed to not be so stiff. And I agree with all of those. But the reason I say that is for this reason. I think it's very important that leaders not take themselves too seriously. Number one, I wanted to show that I listen first. Number two, I don't take myself seriously, but I will in fact take the job seriously. I admire leaders who don't take themselves seriously and not are stuck on their self-importance. So thank you very much.
Eileen, excuse me, Eileen Ware.
Okay, thank you very much. 21 years ago, my husband Tom, who's here tonight, and I moved into the neighborhood where he grew up. We moved here to make a difference in our community, to raise our family, and to make Independence a place where everybody would be proud to call it their home. Since I first ran for city council, I have focused on making the city safer and more prosperous, so there could be better opportunities for the people who live here. Everyone agrees that we need to put more officers on our streets. The Independence Police Department has been understaffed for at least a decade. Prop P, which was approved by the voters in 2019, added 30 new funded positions to IPD to bring our total uniformed officers to 230. Currently, we are 38 officers shy of that goal. In spite of this, crime is down in the city of Independence. From 2020 to 2021, violent crime decreased by 16.5%. Murder is down 38.46%. Aggravated assaults are down by 13.79%, and burglary is down by 33.22%. Our city is experiencing tremendous economic growth and job creation. Our Economic Development Council tracks these metrics on jobs and median income. Over the past 8 years, more than 5,400 new jobs have been created in our city. Median income in 2013 was $41,000. Today, it's over $53,000. Our community made the Independence Uptown Market a reality, transforming an ugly, underused parking lot into an award-winning marketplace. Businesses like Ronson Manufacturing, Unilever, Centerpoint Medical Center, and Cargo Largo are growing in Independence. We've done this because we have come together. Our citizens and our businesses are determined, and we have worked together to build something here that is incredibly exciting. I'm very proud to be your mayor, and I look forward to continuing to make Independence the best place it can be.
Kenneth Love.
Well, good evening, residents. Thank y'all for being here tonight. My name is Kenneth Love. I wrote a speech for opening, but after hearing the people across these tables, I've got to change my voice a little bit. I'm not a polished politician. I am a blue-collar worker. I am a resident just like y'all sitting out in the audience, wondering where has our money been wasted? Why has it been wasted? Over 3 years ago, I stuck to my word and got very involved in the City of Independence. I carried a piece of paper for about 3 weeks, asking for the residents' signatures, collecting signatures, to have our present mayor fired due to her knowledge, knowing what is going on with the city manager, allowing the city manager to get away with the things that he's doing, running our city into bankruptcy, but never has our mayor stepped up and spoke with our council to maybe think about taking a vote to have him terminated. The situation we're in, it takes 4 votes. Right now, our city council only has 3. I don't care how you look at it. If you elect me, Kenneth Love, as your next mayor, I will not accept any special interest money. I'm running my campaign on my own money, and I will not allow what's going on today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidates, for those opening statements. We'll go to our first question now. This question goes first to Colleen Huff with Bryce Stewart on deck behind her. The question is this. The census shows that Independence in the last decade has resumed population growth. As in many cities, that's meant more apartments. That's where the market is. Should the city embrace that, or should it try to push developers in a different direction?
First of all, I'd like to say, in regards to Eileen Weir's stats that she quoted, I would like a fact checker to fact check those, because I don't believe that violent crime is down, and I don't believe new jobs are up. Everyone can look around Independence and see what's going on with Independence. So anyway, I would like for you to check those numbers that she gave and report in the Examiner whether those numbers were accurate. And in regards to your question, I feel like the residents in the surrounding areas need to be involved in those decisions. I feel like we do need to provide more housing to accommodate the increasing population, but it just depends what kind of housing and where you're going to put them. If it's low-income housing, you need to work with the neighborhoods and see if they're on board with this, and we can come to a resolution to try to put more housing in appropriate places where everyone will benefit from it. Thank you.
Bryce Stewart.
So this question is going to be actually pretty easy for me. So recently I voted on an apartment complex, being on the city council, and I voted no on it. My reason for that is I just think we have too many at this time. We need to push the developers toward housing, and I'm talking like higher income housing or middle class housing. That's what we need to bring into the city to give us a better tax base. Thank you.
Rory Rowland.
Thank you. That's a great question. So we have had census growth, but it has not been significant over the last 50 years when you look at Independence. And as all of you have known, if you've watched the last forum or seen me talk or watched the videos on the website, you know that I've talked about ethics reform. And the reason I think Independence has not grown as fast as it has is because when I've talked to developers and they've asked questions, and I've asked them questions, I said, why aren't you doing business with Independence? Or I ask attorneys who represent developers, why aren't developers doing this? And they go back to ethics reform. And I think one of the most important things that we need to do is implement a significant ethics reform campaign within Independence. And one of them is just limit campaign contributions to $1,000. That makes it incredibly difficult for big money to be put into Independence from outside sources. And I just think that's a very, very important key. So I think that's the critical aspect of it. Do we need more apartments? I would probably say yes. We've got a lot of people, we're talking about homelessness. How do you deal with homelessness if you're just building single-family homes that my wife and I couldn't afford when we first came to Independence? We couldn't afford a single-family home. We couldn't afford to do that. So where would we live when we came here if it wasn't for an apartment? And if population is growing, what do you do as a population? So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you, sir.
Eileen Weir.
Okay, thank you. Our population, as Mr. Rowland has said, has grown, but not significantly. We've been very stagnant for a long time in population growth. It's nice to see a little bit of an increase. The way the question was phrased, we don't push developers towards a particular direction. The developer comes to town and they have a project in mind, and we can't tell them, we don't want to do that project, you have to do some other project. So I certainly believe that we need a variety of housing, which is why we conducted a housing study, which was recently completed, and now we're talking about the next steps along with the Chamber of Commerce and our Economic Development Council about how to analyze that data and put it to use. I agree, when I first came on the city council and was first mayor, we got very little attention from the development community. The city suffered from a very unfair and unearned reputation, and I'm very proud that we've been able to bring development to this city, and very high quality development. I think we've settled for very substandard development in the past, and I'm excited that now we gain a lot of interest from the development community who's looking at all kinds of different projects, including apartments. I know many older people want the ease of living in a multifamily unit along with young professionals, young families. So I think there is a place for apartments. We see 3 under construction right now that are very high quality. And this housing study will really help us to determine what that proper mix will be.
Kenneth Love.
Thank you. Very good question. I look at it as maybe a little different because I am a blue-collar worker. Our economic growth has went nowhere. Our economic growth a few years ago happened to be between our current mayor and 2 of our council that is no longer on council for a Rockwood solar farm. It had to be built. It had to be built due to the fact no one wanted low-income housing there. We had an opportunity in the city of Independence to bring big businesses, cross-dock trucking, where a big warehouse would be built, trucks would roll in and out, day in, day out. I spoke against it at every meeting that was held in the Van Trust program. We need, and I say it again, we need more housing, more low-income housing. My wife and I are business owners of rental property. The problem when your business is with low-income housing, our city has made it landlord against property owners because there's too many sets of rules. It's perfectly okay for somebody with a bed and breakfast to be inspected by the fire department for free. But I have to have each and one of my properties inspected and pay $25.
Thank you. Holmes Osborne.
Can you read the question again, please?
Yeah. Question that reads as follows. The census shows that Independence in the last decade has resumed population growth, and as in many cities, that's meant more apartments. That's where the market is. Should the city embrace that, or should the city instead try to push developers in a different direction?
No more apartments. We have an abundance. No more high-end apartments, low-end, middle-end. There's an abundance of apartments already here behind Independence Center, everywhere. They've started getting built a long time ago. No more. Independence is a town of 2 towns. You have a lot of abundance here. You have beautiful neighborhoods off of R.D. Mize, Blue Springs addresses. We have neighborhoods that could give Merriam, Kansas a run for its money. Then we have poor neighborhoods like Fairmont. What do we need to do over here? There's a lot of blighted properties. We need to encourage the owners to tear down these blighted properties if they don't want to fix them up. Then what will happen? Time will go on, somebody will build a house here, and it will become nicer. We're not the repository for the world's problems. We have enough problems here in Independence right now. We need to solve our own problems, okay? And then we can worry about other people's problems. There's a lot of opportunity here in Independence for this. It can be done. Once again, no more apartments. I spoke out about this at the city council meeting when we took a large piece of property behind the Bass Pro Shop. It was in that taxing district. Now it's going to be more apartments. We've given a prime piece of real estate that's at the corner of 291 and I-70. It could have been retail if you'd waited long enough. And now what's it going to be? It's going to be an apartment. What's the life of an apartment? It starts off very nice. Then after a number of years, it needs money put in. Then after a number of years, the owner dies and sells it to someone else. And then after a number of years, it becomes the Harvard Apartments across the street from the Blue Ridge Walmart. Squalor. You don't want that. Thank you.
This next question goes first to Bryce Stewart and Roy Rowland. You're on deck, etc. The question is this. What is the best path for this city to contain utility rates for citizens while also using city-owned utilities to help drive economic development?
So I actually posted something on my Facebook page the other day about this. Recently, we had a study session, and it kind of explained in there, one of the reasons our utilities are so high right now is because we don't have a good mix of commercial, industrial, and residential housing. So as mayor, that's the one thing that I would be focusing on, is to get us some more residential and commercial properties. There's actually two things in my district right now that, there's actually two things in my,
The mics are, okay, and I'll jump in and let you get going again. The mics are actually just for the electronics, so I will remind the candidates to, and myself, to speak up and speak clearly. Continue, sir.
okay, there's actually, that's one of the things I'm going to be focused on as mayor, is bringing more industrial and commercial properties into Independence. And there's actually two possibly going to be coming to my district very soon, and hopefully they come to fruition. But that's how we're going to get the utility rates down. Thank you.
Utilities, Roy Rowland.
Thank you. I think this is one of the most important questions for our city for decades to come. This is by far the most critical decision that any of us on this council or any of these candidates will face going forward. It has been a question in this city that has not been addressed, in my opinion, for decades. And we've got to come and look at the real numbers. The council, for a number of years, has had study after study after study put out by consultants and spend thousands and hundreds of thousands of your dollars to say, what do we do with a utility? What do we do going forward? And the most recent study that Mr. Stewart referred to, but it also included that we had to have significant residential growth. We had to have significant, I mean, even beyond what we can currently have, I think, in land as far as businesses are concerned. We have a power plant that is outdated. Do you want to put a 1940s power plant in your house? No. We need, either we upgrade it or we do something else, but the current path is not reasonable. I would follow the recommendations of the consultants that are professionals and have had decades of experience in this. I would not reject their opinions. I would not reject their analysis. I would not reject their studies just because I wanted to do a pet project with IPL. And that is one of the reasons that I'm running for mayor, because I think it has been mismanaged by the council for a long time, and that needs to stop.
Eileen Ware.
Okay. Industrial development. I've been promoting and championing industrial development for many years, and certainly the entire time that I have served on the Independence Council. When I became mayor and first started attending the Economic Development Corporation meetings, we continually heard, we don't have any product to sell in this town. That's true. We don't have any product to sell in this town. So I immediately said, after hearing that once or twice, maybe 3 times, well then let's go get something. Let's put our mind to it and go build something. We spoke with many developers. We got quite a long way with Van Trust before that project just did not move forward. And you know, sometimes that happens and you learn and you move on. So I will continue to pursue industrial development. We have an incredible land asset that is ripe for that type of high quality industrial development, and that will help us to equalize our utility rates, which are being unduly pushed on our commercial sector. We have a high number of residential customers, a very low number of industrial customers, and the commercial customers are getting the squeeze. Our citizen surveys, year after year after year, you go back and look at them, and we ask them, what type of development are we lacking? And they say industrial. That's in our citizen surveys. I agree again with Mr. Rowland. We've spent a lot of money on consultants and recommendations that the council has chosen not to move forward with. I disagreed with that at the time. We had a consultant put together a plan to do strategic planning for Independence Power and Light. The council said, we don't need that, we've got staff, they can do that themselves. I don't agree with that. Every industry relies on consultants to help them, to guide them through that, and I would certainly continue to push for that as well.
A reminder to the candidates to be mindful of time, if you would. We're doing okay, but let's keep it tight. Kenneth Love.
Great question. Through economic development, we need a tax base to create financial stability. More low-income housing. Decommissioning the power plant wasted, again, the current mayor, city council, wasted $10 million. This was a tragedy and created utility rates to go sky high. In the past, Councilman Huff implemented a 4% and 2% rate reduction for utility payers. There is a $68 million in reserves that not being used, and it has not been utilized. Moving forward, I will sit here and tell you, not looking for the past and not looking for today. I am looking for the future of my grandkids, your grandkids. We need a power plant. I will say it again. We need a power plant. If we are going to survive as a city for bigger growth, you have to look what's coming down in the future. And the future being, where are you, the residents, are going to buy electricity from when there's nothing but electric vehicles running around our streets? This is the reason nobody wants to hear this word, but I will tell you folks, the residents need to understand we need a power plant. The best power plant will be a nuclear power plant. Thank you.
Holmes Osborne.
Read the question again, please.
Yes, sir. Let's see, we've got it here. What is the best path for this city to contain utility rates for its citizens while also using city-owned utilities to drive economic development?
I mentioned, as you know, I'm a proponent of building a new gas-fired power plant. Solar plays its role, wind plays its role, but both are very difficult for your base load for the Midwest. Coal is hard on the environment. Evergy has an abundance of coal-fired plants. We use coal-fired plants from Southwest Power Pool. Gas-fired would be the best thing for us. This can draw industry here. How? With cheap electricity. The challenge is cutting down bureaucracy. We've talked about what happened at the police department today. What's happening at IPL? I don't know. I see expensive pickup trucks. I read things in the newspapers. I would say that there's fat on the bone that can get cut off of the bone. Now, in regards to what consultants say, do you know what the definition of a consultant is? A consultant is someone who comes into your town, tells you what you want to hear, charges you a big bill, and then disappears, okay? I went to the best government school in the country. I'm not bragging because a blue-collar guy like this has got common sense, okay? I've seen these fancy presentations. I've seen 100-page PowerPoints of bad ideas. I'm in the stock market. I'm in the economics. I see projections made that just don't come to fruition. Power plant done properly, raised with many millions of dollars through a bond offering, would be a great thing for the city.
And we swing back to Colleen Huff, the utility question.
First, I just want to start by saying our current mayor has had 8 years to solve all these same problems that we are still facing. I mean, year after year, it's the same issues. And so if she was going to improve our city, she's had plenty of time to do it. And secondly, I just want to talk about Rory and his code of ethics that he's touting. We already have a code of ethics, and it's called the Missouri Ethics Committee. And you say that you would put a limit of $1,000, yet recently you took a $2,000 donation for your campaign. And in solving the situation that we have with IPL, the recent study that our residents funded said we needed to add 33,300 residential customers or 4,000 commercial customers or 27 industrial customers. So the problem that we have, why we can't bring new families to Independence, is because the trash, the homelessness, the blight. We can't get new businesses or industries interested in our city because of all the current bureaucracy with our leaders. I mean, I've had many people, some sitting here this evening, who have come to me wanting to start new businesses in Independence and had to leave and go elsewhere. So we are facing the same problems that we've had for many years. And I'm going to solve these problems.
Can I rebut?
You're up next.
Okay.
So let's do it that way.
All right.
The next question goes first to Roy Rowland, and then Eileen Weir will be on deck behind him. The question is this. The Independence Ministerial Alliance recently offered to pay the city for passes so homeless people could get a shower at the Sermon Center. The city said no. So two questions there. One, was that the right call? Two, aside from the long-term issues such as jobs and housing, what obligation does the city have to people who are on the streets and in immediate crisis today?
Yeah, the homeless issue that we're facing in our city is affecting all of us. None of us want to be, when we're driving our cars, we don't want to be at a corner and having somebody come up to our door and begging for money. However, homelessness is brought on by primarily three factors. Number one, drug addiction. Families, just say, hey, you're a drug addict, you got to get out of here, or they go through all of their money trying to get that next fix. So drug addiction is a big issue. The next is mental health. That is also a very big issue. And then number three, what happens is there are some people, and there are some estimates I've seen between 10 to 15% that people choose to do that. Now, what I would like to do with our homeless situation is we really haven't had a discussion in our city where we've brought religious leaders together, experts like the folks from CSL, all of them together in a coalition to discuss how to deal with homelessness. I've walked to thousands of houses, and I have asked that question to thousands of citizens in your town. And I have heard a multitude of responses of how to deal with it. Some as callous as just arrest them and take them away. Some as more caring and compassionate to say, we need to have a process to work with the homeless. I'm a compassionate individual, and I think there needs to be some way that we work together on this. Does any city that we know of had a magic bullet to fix this? There has not. Has there been any city that's come with the best practices to say this is the only way to resolve it? We have not. So it's going to require somebody to listen to all of us, to bring us together, to facilitate a realistic discussion to say how many resources we can use and what can we deal with this issue going forward. I don't have a magic bullet. I don't have a magic wand.
Eileen Weir.
The idea of the showers at the Sermon Center, I don't believe that that was the appropriate solution. I did reach out to Reverend Sarah Wimberly after learning about that and offered some other ideas. It was put out into the public that I was going to put a homeless camp at Phil Roberts Park, which is located right down the street from me. That is not the case. I did suggest that perhaps that we could provide some temporary services, like portable showers, like portable restrooms, like trash receptacles, that we could then supervise and have the homeless people or people who needed those services come, clean up, get a fresh set of clothes, throw away their trash, and maybe we could help to connect them at that time with some services that they need. During the pandemic, we reestablished our local public health authority. I put together a task force of our city council members and our city staff to talk about how we're going to fund and operate our health department. A key focus of that is mental health. We've had one mental health town hall meeting. We have another one planned. We have a mental health and suicide prevention task force formed. So putting those resources into mental health, which includes addiction and substance abuse, is a big factor in our homeless situation, and I believe the obligation of our public health authority and our community to start to address. We did in the past have a Hungry and Homeless Coalition. It kind of got reorganized and people moved on, but it's a great idea to bring something like that back. So I'm definitely in favor of providing some services and also to really put our energies into the mental health aspects of this issue.
Kenneth Love.
Great question. Residents, I'm probably the only mayoral candidate has stepped outside the box on this issue of homeless. I have been and welcomed into camps to sit around a fire, to listen what has driven people to where they are now. There's no easy solution to address here. It's an ongoing problem. Each case has its own issues. Families, adults, teenagers are affected by this type of situation. The mental illness, the drugs, the alcohol, and domestic violence. Our city health department was shut down until it realized it can maybe make a lot of money by reopening and calling it COVID, accepting money from the state of Missouri. On the upside here, there are churches, there are charities, there are shelters, and hospitals that have always been trying to help. Over the past 3 weeks, I have been meeting with residents. I've been going to school to get educated on different types of illness. Every class that I have attended goes back to every person, adult or child, at some part of their life started as a young child, to a middle age, to an adult. It's like a revolving door. If we want to help, we cannot kick the can down the road.
Holmes Osborne.
Read the question again, please.
Sure. The Ministerial Alliance recently, it was December, went to the city and offered to buy passes so homeless people could get a shower at the Sermon Center. The city said no. So there are two questions there. One, was that the right call by the city? Two, aside from long-term issues such as jobs and housing, which we're also discussing tonight, what obligation does the city have to people who are on the streets and in immediate crisis right now?
Of all the questions and problems facing Independence, I cannot figure out why this issue has not already been addressed. We have an abundance of homeless people. They walk up to people's houses in the middle of the night, they rattle their doors, they scare people. They're stumbling around on 40 Highway and Nolan Road. They shouldn't be there. What should we do? Okay, we needed to have a police force to marshal these people to where they need to be. Where do they need to be? At the Sermon Center. In my opinion, the Sermon Center should be a community center, not for homeless. We should beef up the Sermon Center, but that's another discussion. We should already have homeless places for battered women, for veterans, for people with PTSD, for people with all types of mental illnesses and drug addiction and alcohol addiction. We should have these places here in Independence, Missouri. We have a dearth of these places. And the Ministerial Alliance, they need to kick in. They need to let us use their churches. Most of these organizations are Christians. What would Jesus do? Jesus would allow some of these homeless folks to stay there at the church in the basement. It can be solved. Thank you.
Colleen Huff.
Well, in my opinion, I do not believe that the Sermon Center should have allowed the homeless to come there and take showers. I've been working with the homeless for over a decade, and it is typically a couple of reasons, which is drug addiction or mental illness, mental health needs, and there are already tons of resources out there for the homeless population. Some of the homeless, they choose to live like that, but I believe that through good practices, and I'll get back to that in just a second, but let me just say for the homeless population, I have a folder like that thick of resources that are available in Independence. We have comprehensive mental health. They have one building that services the mental health needs. They also have another facility for addiction. There are tons of places to get treatment. So they need to get treatment and they need to get off the streets. It's not safe for them. How can it be safe for them to be living in a tent when it's 0 degrees outside? So it's not good for them. It's not good for the community. And the police department had a great innovative way to tackle the rising homeless population in Independence. They were starting a new department called the Community Response Teams. There were going to be 7 officers and 1 sergeant. And basically, it was going to be combined with the narcotics unit. And they were going to police the homeless camps. And so basically, if you're homeless and you have the police coming to your camp every single day, you're going to leave the city. So that's how we're going to solve it.
Bryce Stewart.
So this is actually the first time I've heard about this Sermon Center thing, which kind of surprised me when I heard the question. So I don't think that would have been the right idea. Now, obviously, we need to figure out a way, because if the homeless individuals, if they get a shower every day, or even every couple of days, it would definitely, help with self-esteem, things like that. I know if I go a day without a shower, I don't feel quite right. So a couple of points that I do agree with that were made. I think we need a community-wide effort to handle this. No government that I found has did this right. Homeless is across this country. It's a metro-wide problem, but it's definitely a community-wide effort. And I think we need to reach out to more of the private sector charities and private individuals to try to address this. Thank you.
This next question will go to Eileen Ware first, and Kenneth Love, you're on deck. Independence, like many cities across the country, is having trouble recruiting police officers. In Independence, officers get raises by contract, and the city recently approved retention bonuses for officers. Do you think this is a pay issue, or are there additional strategies that the city should pursue? Mayor Ware.
Thank you. Yes, obviously this is a topic that we spent a lot of time talking about, one that I've personally invested my time and energy into for many, many years to support our Independence Police Department through various initiatives. Pay is a factor. There's no question about that. Everybody wants to be fairly compensated for the work that they do. This is a national crisis that Independence is experiencing alongside many other cities across our nation, and we're going way outside of our metropolitan area to find quality police officers that meet our standards and are worthy of working here in this city. Our police department has been in a state of disarray for a bit of time. We have an interim chief who is serving now, and that is a problem. That is a problem. We need to have stability and consistency within our police department for our officers to want to stay here, to feel respected. I will say this community is unbelievably supportive of our police officers, of our department, and they feel that and they know that. We've experienced tremendous tragedies in our police department, and the community has never failed to step up to support our officers. They support them at the ballot. When we put things on the ballot to raise your taxes for supporting the police officers, time and time again, the voters step up and do that. So those are very positive things, but we just have some things that really truly need to be addressed within the organization to give those officers a sense of security.
Kenneth Love.
Thank you. Very, very important question. The safety of you, the residents of Independence. Our police department has been on the down for the last 8 years. Why hasn't our mayor, our city manager, our council stepped up to get more police officers here? Yes, they've had academies, but the old same song, the old same dance. We get people in the academy, they get their badge, but they go somewhere else because the City of Independence don't pay enough, or because the City of Independence benefits that a lot of our police officers are very familiar with is lifetime benefits. One thing I would do, I would work very hard as a mayor to bring back those benefits to the police officers. Also, I believe a starting salary for an IPD rookie police officer should be $70,000. I have called all around the United States, talking to different police departments of how they go about their hiring, how they go about their expenditures of vehicles, and 7 states have stated they make a budget of $100,000. That $100,000, $70,000 of it is a police officer's salary for his first year. Also equip the car and body cameras.
Holmes Osborne.
I've changed my magic number to 71,000. That magic number is 60,000 or 70,000 or whatever it is. It's a theory that we will attract the best and retain the best. And where do I get this number? I look at other trades. I look at electricians and plumbers and firefighters. And the logic says that if you don't pay folks enough, they're not going to want to do that job, okay? I hear about all these propositions and things like that. Okay, they count for something, but again, I keep coming back to there's a lot of meat on the bone. We found out today about the officer who got all that overtime. That overtime that he received could have more than paid for another officer, okay? The opportunity's there. Whether the magic number is 60 or 70,000, if we tried 60,000 and it didn't work, we would go back to the drawing board. Is it salary? I think so. It might not be. If it's not salary, then we need to find out what it is. I live in a logical world, kind of the old days, where the more you paid people, they showed up. In this crazy economy, I'm not so sure. But I think $60,000 a year is the magic number, and if we pay that, we will find top-notch police. And in regards to crime statistics, the crime statistics would actually go up because then we'd be arresting people. I've pointed this out before. People don't take this seriously. I do. The voters do at the door. Expired tags, okay? It's endemic of what's going on in Independence, okay? I've told you this in the last forum. When you come to my county, next door, Lafayette County, you don't have an expired tag because you will get arrested and you will get ticketed, and if you get pulled over, the police officer might see that you have an outstanding warrant in another town and you'll go to jail. $60,000 a year.
Colleen Huff.
So crime and recruiting police is, it's a national problem right now. After the George Floyd murder, all police were defamed and defunded, and the mayors in Democrat cities encouraged the stigma, and it was promoted by the national media that all police were racist. And their rhetoric is still causing, just recently in 2 major cities, 2 police officers were gunned down. And that's why we're having such a problem recruiting police officers. They've been beat up. I mean, goodness, I have a nephew that's a police officer, and he works for Kansas City Police Department. He is so disheartened right now. So basically, what we can do here in Independence is fill the chief of police position, and also, you know, just promote the police. Let other cities know that we love and support our police. And also just to give police more opportunity, opportunity for growth and advancement. Like right now, after they finish the academy, they have to wait 2 years before they can even apply to be on any special forces teams, like the detective or narcotics team or one of the other teams. So we need to reduce that, do a great just marketing blitz to let everyone know that Independence, we love and support our police officers. And I know they've gotten a recent increase, they've got bonuses, so their pay now is top compared to like our surrounding cities like Blue Springs and Lee Summit. So the pay is good. They need body cameras to protect themselves, and we need to rally around them and market our police.
Bryce Stewart.
So as I mentioned in my opening comments, I've been a police officer for nearly a decade. So back in 2001, I applied for my first department, and that was North Kansas City. I went in to test with them, and when I walked in, there was well over 100 applicants to take this test. And this test wasn't to get hired. It was just a test to put you on a, you know, they were wanting 5 people as on a roll to just to be able to pick of when they did have openings. So that was 20 years ago. So what's happened since then? We started with Ferguson, we've had Baltimore. We recently, you know, in the last year, we had the Derek Chauvin incident. And the police officers are demoralized. So no, it's not just a pay issue. It's a lot more than that. So when I first got on the city council, one of the first things I did, I sent an email to the city manager, and I said, okay, we need to get people hired for this police department. Why are we not offering, you know, sign-on bonuses? Or I didn't mention retention, but I mentioned sign-on bonuses for sure. And he actually told me it was in the works with the FOP, and they did approve of it. And eventually we did get that passed when we got our COVID stimulus money. But eventually that money's going to run out. So a couple of months ago, I actually met with Governor Parsons' staff, and I'm hoping that my idea was to put some state money in order to recruit out-of-state officers or to give so they can meet us halfway on it. You know, $60,000, yeah, that would probably get us some people, you know, but if you're not happy with your job, if you're demoralized, you need more than that. You gotta have a community that supports you, which I believe Independence does, but I just think it's gonna take more than the money. You gotta be happy with your department. Thank you.
Rory Rowland.
Thank you. Number one, I want to start out by saying thank you to the men and women who work in our police department. They do an extraordinary job, an incredibly difficult job being shorthanded. Look at all the work that they did for us during COVID when they had to go out and work in our community, even in the environment where they could in fact be infected by that virus. I just want to say thank you to our men and women in blue. I want to thank you to the families that support them. And I also want to thank all the dispatchers and everyone who works in police. I just think it's so important because there's some people up here on this panel who are in fact, you know, saying they're demoralized. And one of the reasons I think that's occurring is because of that kind of conversation, because of that kind of talk. And if we want to attract officers, we've got to attract officers and say, and show the positive sides of our city. I'll give you an example of this. This is actually off of a brochure that was sent out as a mailer in this election cycle. And this candidate, sitting on this form, said this about our city. Our city is infested with urban crime. Gang shootings, riots at City Hall, riots at Independence Center, officers being shot and sadly killed. Shootings at Santa Caligon. And they want to run for mayor. And they also want to be the chief economic development officer for our city. We've got to change the dynamic of our discussion about the men and women in blue. They do an extraordinary job. And that's one of the keys of this community supports them. They supported them in this last election. And if we want to retain and keep people, we have got to change the dynamic of how we talk about them at this table.
We want to be respectful of everyone's time tonight here in a cold, snowy, icy night in Northwest Independence. So this will be the last question, and then we'll have time for closing statements from each of the candidates. This question goes first to Kenneth Love, and then that means Holmes Osborne is on deck behind him. The question is this, excuse me. Every community wants economic development. Those that attract it make trade-offs to get it. I'll give you an example. This community will continue to tolerate excessive truck traffic for the Unilever and Cargo Largo expansions, but it was not willing to consider a degree of truck traffic for the Van Trust project. When the next proposal comes along to the city, what are your criteria for deciding which trade-offs that you are willing to ask the community to put up with, to embrace?
Great question. First off, it takes to going back to where we first got started. It's called respect to the men and women of our communities. We need to get out and listen to you, the residents, of why you may want it or why you're against it. Because one way, some way, it always comes down to, whoa, we don't want this in our backyard. Same with truck traffic going up and down Nolan Road. Nolan Road is not wide enough to handle the traffic that I feel it's going to allow coming and going. Our streets are definitely not in the favor of big semi-trucks. I am a professional driver. I've been driving for 38 years. Look at the weight. Look at the potholes. We have a problem. Red lights. Sometimes you're sitting at a red light for 3 minutes. Sometimes 2 minutes. I am for bringing that type of business into Independence. But the backbone of this is the residents of Independence. Has anybody talked to y'all? Has anybody asked, what do y'all think? No. Our mayor, our council has just shoved it through, and you live with it. Elect Kenneth Love as mayor, and that will not happen.
Holmes Osborne.
Economic development, where do these things go? How does it affect the neighborhoods in which it's placed? That area off of R.D. Mize in regards to Van Trust, I live very close to it. Not a great place for large manufacturing. I knocked on someone's door the other day. Their property was contiguous to where that property was. This fellow was a math teacher. He told me that mathematically, if you stood where his property was, you were so close you couldn't see both edges of the building. Okay? I walk up and down R.D. Mize for exercise, not that part of town. This part of town, okay? This is the old industrial part of town. That part of town is for newer houses. This part of town is a great place to do that. And we have a lot of things going for us. Interstate 70, 291, 435. All we have to do is reduce the blight and the crime, and the business will come. When's it going to come? I don't know. My family's been here since 1838. When I was a child, I would come here to Independence Center and Blue Ridge Mall, and when my parents were young, they would come here, and then when my grandfather farmed in Bates City, he would come here when this was a little tiny town. I'm a distant relative of Paul Henning. Our families came here in Virginia in the 1830s, okay? It'll come. Don't rush it. Don't do funky tax deals, okay? Because you know why, what happens when you do these funky tax deals? The life of a business is it lasts for a while, okay? And then it's not so great. Take Sears. Once upon a time, it was the greatest company in the United States. It's bankrupt now, okay? Most companies go through a natural process like that. Don't do any types of tax giveaways that the average citizen doesn't get.
Colleen Huff.
I think first off, we need to clarify what you mean by trade-offs, because I'm sure what you mean is not quid pro quos, where you're doing deals and taking kickbacks for those deals that are being done.
No, it's
So-
it's the trade-offs that the residents
Right,
put up with
right,
every day.
and I
the trucks, the
understand
noise, or
that,
whatever it
and I
is. Yeah,
wanted
okay.
I just wanted to clarify that, because there are deals being made by our current leaders, and they're receiving kickbacks on those. So basically, as far as trade-offs, I would never do a deal with a new developer without considering the whole picture. What it would do to the neighborhood, how the residents felt about it. For instance, the solar farm. Who wants to have a solar farm in their backyard? Secondly, putting in a brand-new school without sidewalks for the children to walk on, and the children are walking through snow. They're walking through their neighbors' yards, but, I mean, it's okay because all the neighbors know the city didn't put in sidewalks. So basically, before we do a deal, we're gonna consider the whole picture and make sure it's well thought out.
Bryce Stewart.
So the first thing, if a new developer wants to come and do something, the citizens have to be reached out to, and you have to communicate with them exactly what's going to happen. Because when they start talking about it and talking about the rumors and innuendos, that spreads fast. So that's the first thing that I would do. Reach out to the citizens, make sure, they completely understand what's going on. And you have to have their input. You just gotta talk to them, and if, they're all right with it, I'm good with it. If they have valid reasons against it, I'd be against any new development, just as I would of Van Trust. Thank you.
Roy Rowland.
Thank you. If I could, Mr. Chair, refer back to a question that Ms. Huff had with regards to
It's your 2 minutes.
financing. Thank you. Was that contribution an illegal contribution?
Well, it's not that it was an illegal contribution, but if you are touting over and over your new ethics code where you don't feel any candidate should receive a donation of more than $1,000.
Right. And if I can, it's my 2 minutes.
Isn't
It's my
that
2 minutes.
hypocritical? You asked me a question.
I did.
Why don't
So
we
I'm
let
answering.
Mr. Rowland
So
go ahead?
when did you decide you couldn't take more than $1,000? Was that just yesterday, or when was that?
That's a great question. And I've been a state representative for 7 years. There have contributions in the past of that amount. What I'm talking about is people taking $5,000 and $10,000 checks to run for this office. And what I'm saying is when you drive down a street, if the speed limit was 55 miles an hour yesterday and it's 35 miles an hour today, you've got to be respectful of that. I'm saying that the reason we're having problems with economic development in our city is because of the abuse of the situations where people are taking large amounts of money, or there are other folks involved in our city that are actually requiring developers to
I
work with
agree.
them. And you and I agree on that completely.
I agree.
But we cannot change this city until we agree that we're going to change the ethics laws. And right now, they are unlimited. Anybody can take any amount for this city to run for it. And I am opposed to that adamantly. I think that is one of the reasons we've had problems in our city is unlimited campaign finances, bringing large amounts of money from outsiders that are impacting your city. And I'm running for mayor because I want to stop that. If we're going to have economic development in our city, we've got to clean up the political environment in Independence. Thank you.
No Don't stop them, let them go.
No, I'm going to stop.
This is entertaining. I'll give them some of my time.
2 minutes is
Here.
2 minutes.
This is more exciting. Listen
Go
to me.
ahead, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Oh, this is where I lost control of the whole thing. Eileen Weir, that question goes to you.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the question that was asked. I made lots of notes, and so I'm just going to pick a few things. Only about 10% of our working population works inside the city of Independence. That is a problem. If we don't find a way to create jobs for people who live here, then we are never going to overcome some of the problems that have plagued us for decades that we are continuing to struggle with. Our educational systems have done an incredible job. The Independence School District with their Academies program, which is the best program that we've seen any place that we've ever visited all over this country as we've taken trips and learned about economic development. And we come home and we say, there's lessons to learn from other cities, but we got it down in education in this city. Fort Osage has marvelous programs, Raytown, Blue Springs, the community college that Mr. Osborne serves on. But those things don't mean anything if those kids grow up and they can't find a job here in their hometown. And right now, we just don't have those jobs. We don't have enough high-quality, high-paying jobs that can sustain a family, and we need to create that. So we have to be flexible with the marketplace and understand what the market is calling for and what those 21st century jobs look like. So I will continue to say that the trade-off is our future. If we don't develop now, then these young, bright people that we're raising in this community, that we want to stay here and love their community for generations, just like many of us have, then we need to create these jobs.
We're at closing statements. We're going to continue with the same order, but to make sure the same people aren't going first or last. Bryce Stewart's kind of in the middle of all these rotations. Bryce Stewart's going to go first.
Why, thank you. So I wanted to touch on the ethics reform that Rory keeps bringing up. So personally, I've actually self-financed 99% of my entire campaign. And it was quite a little bit of money. I've taken 3 very small donations from individuals. The rest of it was all myself. Because I agree with them, we do need finance reform. What I disagree with is that the person who is talking about this extra reform took like $20-some thousand from a state campaign and pumped it into a city council campaign. So I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that if you elect me, you'll know that you're not bought and paid for. The other thing I want to bring up, so recently I submitted a resolution in front of the city council. And basically it was about sunshine request ordinances. It did pass by a vote of 4-3. Now, the ordinance may be small to some, but I felt I was trying to make the city more transparent. So that's one of the things we need to work on in this city is transparency. And I think, if I'm elected mayor, it'll be a mayor that works for all citizens, for more transparency. We also got to work on the blight, roads, utilities, and truly make the city better for everyone. Thank you.
Roy Rowland.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you all for being here this evening, and thank you for your interest in your city. It's citizens like you that make us a better community, and I just want to say thank you for being here and for taking that time. I just want to read just a bit of a letter from a friend of mine, David, and he basically wrote me a letter, and he was wishing me well and hoping I'd become mayor. But this is what he said. He said, "My message to you is that we are not only voting for you, but we are now actively rooting for you to win. I see this city in such disrepair. It needs an energetic restart." And I agree. I want to take that energy to push our city into a positive direction. My goal is to, number one, listen first. Always to listen first. There is not anyone up here that ran in this campaign who has knocked on more doors than I have. I can absolutely assure you of that, and I can show you the data to prove it, and I will have a discussion with anyone on that. As regards to the $20,000 of the past, that was in my campaign account, and the mayor also transferred money to come to this election. So we need to be fair if we're going to have those allegations. Also, my goal is with regards to ethics reform. I think we need significant ethics reform in this city. Number one, $1,000 campaign contributions going forward. It doesn't mean they're illegal in the past, it means they're illegal going forward. Number two, term limits for the mayor. 2 4-year terms is enough. Contribution limits from vendors. And what I mean by that is asphalt companies, concrete companies, wire companies that do business with IPL cannot contribute to the campaigns of elected officials. And then a code of ethics for elected officials that we sign and we agree to and we swear that we will in fact follow. And there are some things that have not been followed with past city council members. And so with that, I ask for your vote February the 8th, because I'm last on the ballot. It's biblical. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first.
Eileen Ware.
I'm going to go back to where I started with safety and economic development, which are the things that I work hardest on and care the most about. I will say that the information that I shared on the crime statistics is available on a website that's available to anybody called showmecrime.mo.gov. I requested this information from our police department, and they provided it to me, so anybody can go and ask our police department for these same statistics, and they guided me to this website as well. Moving forward, we had a terrible realization today of something that potentially happened in our police department that is absolutely unexcusable, and we will get to the bottom of it quickly. Something that we have already started as we have accelerated the search for a permanent chief of police to restore some order to our police department and to support our officers. I have talked to the city manager and the chief of police and the FOP about body cams. I was not in favor of spending one-time money on body cams, but it is a program that we need to implement in this city, and we need to start making a plan about how we are going to do that. Our facilities, our detention center, our court are terrible and need to be improved and restored. On economic development, I'm going to keep pushing for industrial development. I'm going to keep pushing for jobs for our bright young students who are coming up through our schools to be able to stay here in the city that they love in their hometown, and workforce training, which I'm also very involved with the Truman Heartland Community Foundation, Community Services League, the Community College, and many agencies around here to make sure that our adults are trained for the careers that are available to them right now, right here in our city.
Kenneth Love.
Thank you. Very, very important question again. Great questions all night long. I wrote a closing statement. Why did I just close it up in a big ball of trash? Because that's all I've heard tonight. We have a city charter that is in place. Anybody and everybody that sits on that dais should read the city charter, and that city charter should be the Bible of our city. I kind of agree a little bit with one of my mayoral candidates over there about funds collecting money. I have paid for my campaign 100%. Did not ask for any donations, don't want any donations, because I am straightforward. Donations come with strings. The reason I'm running for mayor, I am fed up with it. I will cut that string. I will make these situations be known publicly. What happened to the body cameras? Last year, I think, in council, they voted in favor for our police officers to have body cameras. Where are they? Why are we waiting? Our police officer needs them for reasons. Not only to protect them, but to tell the truth. in the public's eyes. That's the reason you have a public problem and a police problem, because publics have got cell phones and the publics are steady holding it. Police officers only have a voice recorder.
Closing statement, Holmes Osborne.
I have had so much fun this campaign. Thank you. I've met so many nice people. I started in early October. I started gathering signatures. You have to gather 250 signatures of voters. It's not as easy as you think. You knock on someone's front door, you ask them to sign something, 2 out of 3 times they're going to turn you down. They have no idea what they're signing. But nevertheless, it was fun. I visited parts of Independence that I've never seen. I visited a Community of Christ camp off of 7 Highway that's been there since the 1970s. Fascinating place. I've seen Art Deco homes, stuff that would rival I.M. Pei, antebellum mansions, and then of course you have your core of Independence, which are the old ranch houses built in the 1960s and the 1970s, nicest people in the world. Your average person from Independence, 70 years old, retired from Armco Steel, that's your heart of Independence right there. There's a lot of opportunity here. It just has to be done properly. You just have to be patient, because not only are they Independence folks, they're Americans. The day that you were born in this country, you were already won. Do you know that if you were born in South America or Africa, you could be extremely intelligent and work all day and never get anywhere in your entire life? You won the day you were born here. Businesses will come here. They will. There's plenty of colleges around here, trade programs. All you got to do is go out and get it. And I can't stress enough, I've run in political campaigns before. I raised a small amount of money this time. I had to rely on door knocking. I knocked on the doors of 3,000 people, of approximately half of those amount were home. I talked to them. That's where these ideas emanate from. Thank you.
And the closing statement, Colleen Huff.
Residents of Independence, I just want to say our current mayor has had 8 years to make our city what it is today. If I were given 8 years, I can tell you one thing, we would not be talking about the same issues over and over, the blight, the lack of new families coming to Independence, the abandoned buildings, the vacant properties, the homeless people walking up and down our streets. If I was given 8 years, and I can promise you, if you give me 8 years, I am going to transform this city into something that we will all be proud of. I'm a successful business owner. I founded a nonprofit to work with homeless families because I'm compassionate. But my compassion is different. I'm not going to enable the homeless. I'm going to teach them a better way. I have a proven track record of successes in working with the most difficult people to achieve positive outcomes. And I believe with all my heart I will make the best mayor for Independence. My greatest qualification is the love that I have for Independence and its residents. During my time in Independence, I've initiated cleanup efforts. My husband and I both serve on the launch team of the new Independence Abundant Life campus. And I also work with families in our community one-on-one to bring about lasting positive outcomes. Independence needs a fresh start with a new leader, and I hope that I will be that leader. Thank you.
Go ahead. I forgot to warn everybody at the outset to not applaud. Nobody applauded, and now we can applaud. So that's all good.
Thank you.
That's some first-class moderating right there. I want to thank everybody for coming. And if you'll indulge me, I want to repeat the same thing I said last night. I want to thank these candidates. My conception of the newspaper is that it is a place, not the only place, but it is an important place, where a community gets together every day and has an ongoing conversation about what's going on, what its priorities are, when the football game is, all that stuff. And there's a lot to be said for people who hold themselves out for office, who go and get those 250 signatures, who knock on all those doors. So the candidates, again, I want to thank them for doing that and for taking part tonight. I Want to thank the Fairmont Community Center, which remains a wonderful asset in our community, and for hosting us here tonight and keeping us warm. And I think I'm supposed to say that there's some snacks in the back or something like that. Last thing, the primary is on Tuesday. It is everyone's right and obligation, I would say, to vote. Polls in our state are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Please exercise your right to vote. Thank you, and good night.